there's a collective energy that's in motion and moving, and I would say awakening to the awareness of itself and its greater collective, and how the human species is connected to the planet itself. And I believe that awareness is going to be directly connected to how successful our future is. And that's why
he likes to drink. When he drinks, his demon takes over in a way. But then he starts drinking again, and he doesn't really remember it. It's about like we were talking about this, like a level of psychosis like this, you know. And it has an impact on like everyone that's around him, because when he starts screaming and yelling, everyone is affected by it. Like, and I had to do my work in order to even have the relationship that I have with them. And there are days I definitely want to lose my shit. Yesterday was one of those days, but I had to find my cool. Like, you know, it's not about you and your dad, Mano. Like, you know, you got to keep your shit together. It's about your little brother's birthday, okay? So yeah, I'm still finding a way to navigate that process. It is hard, because a lot of things that I see in them, I see in me. So I also have to be mindful of that as well. Like I don't want to project my own shit onto him. At the same time, I don't want to like let him loose either, because I give myself a hard time about it. So the thing that I got from like my last ayahuasca ceremony, it's like you've done what you needed to do. Now you need to heal generational trauma. That's where it's at. You have to break that chain, and you know it takes that generation to like stop. I think this is part of the reason why I think I don't want to have kids. It's because I don't want my kids to have the same problem that I had, whether that's consciously or unconsciously. Don't just want to pass on that energy to them, because they have to deal with that shit. You know what I mean? Yeah, you always, I think I mentioned this before, I get dropped into this fantasy. Oh, I can help heal my father because I've healed all this, you know, in 4 ceremonies or 5 ceremonies or 6 ceremonies, right? And then I come back into the reality of like being in the same room with him, and I was like, oh shit, no, there's still, I'm still pissed.
And so once you realize that this is just one aspect, there are loads, but once you realize that somebody makes dramas that they don't want solved, you stop rushing to their aid, right? And to everyone else, that looks quite cold, like you're not a caring person. And then they play on that sometimes, right? More drama, okay? So it can get really twisted, and that's just one version. There's quite a lot of versions of this. The currency of our planet is sort of conscious attention, right? And that conscious attention focuses and forms energy into things, right? And so it's not even that it's energy stealing, it's a conscious attention stealing. It's like people want to pull our magical ability to create with consciousness into their, they want to train it in the way that they want to use it, right? And so energy vampire work, but it's not quite right, because they don't necessarily want your energy. They want your time and attention focused into something that they're trying to create. And it gets to the point where it becomes physical assault. You know, it goes all the way through the range, intimidation, etc. But at some point, it becomes physical assault. And I think a lot of bullies, you know, bullying, you know, just violence in general, a lot of it can be tracked not to two opposing points of view, reaching a conflict that is physical. It literally is just somebody trying to steal attention and energy and all that from somebody, and they're not prepared to set a clever trap. They just walk up and take it.
I think it's important to also understand how we can generate energy from like within ourselves, within, I guess, the source itself. So I feel that part of the reason it happens because we are disconnected in some ways from source, or like any, you know, like life force itself. So we tend to seek that from others.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think that is one of the issues, is that there are people who aren't collecting their own energy by connecting, right? So they are offline, and literally, like you said, if they don't get energy, they're gonna die. And so they start to feed off of people that are connected or have been connected enough to build up some energy.
Yeah, I would say it's my like kind of fundamental belief system that we are all connected with source. Then like our awareness, our attention, our beliefs can feel or think we're disconnected or act in ways that keep us from giving our attention or awareness to our connection and being distracted from that connection enough to where we can start to act in very unhealthy ways or self-destructive ways, or we could even be crying out for like we're drowning, you know, metaphorically drowning when we're not, because we think we are. Then if we were like connected, if we had our awareness or attention back to our true connection, we'd realize we're not drowning and we're fine, right? That we always are connected and never are not connected, but a lot of us behave as though we are not, and lose our awareness of it, or believe that we're in a state of disconnect. And I think that drives the desperation. And I think we definitely have to do practices to help us remember our connection and maybe get out of our own way from blocking or interfering or distracting from that connection. And like, I think those things are maybe not so much as like some mystery that we have to like find, as much as it's already there. We just have to stop getting in the way of it or getting lost from it. Or
To me, the fundamental flaw with the religions is that they point people in the wrong direction. They tell them a story and they give them things to memorize and know and focus on. And what they don't seem to do is lead people to the connection we're talking about. Lead them to an awareness of self, and an awareness of self amongst something else. You know, like that seems to be the only job of a spiritual helper is to do that. And they do everything but that in religion, don't they?
But I also believe that where we are right now in this space and time, it's time for us to, you know, go beyond religions, because religion has brought us as close as it can bring us to the truth of who we are. And I don't believe that it can bring us any closer, at least those who are awake, who have been on the path. Now it's, you know, we need something greater. I think that's where spirituality comes into play.
At the physical level, we have a brain. The brain has two hemispheres. Each one does something different for us. And I believe that this is a body machine that consciousness sits in and resides in, amongst divinity. And that this place we're in right now, nature would have been divine. We would have ultimately been sort of in balance, but something happened. Somehow the mechanical left part, which is just the forward motion, doing things, grabbing things, getting things done, and sees things in very small pieces, a narrow bandwidth, which loses the context and therefore can basically be insane, is the driver of what we see in the world right now. It became politics, it became war, it became, you know, totalitarianism, it became overt masculinity, it became sort of too much control. It's turning into AI. And the solve isn't to go to the extreme opposite, which would be what people are calling, we call the feminine, you know, the imaginative, the creative, the fantasy, the emotional, the drifty, the big picture. It isn't to go fully into that. It's to bring both back together, out of schism, back into divinity. And that literally that mechanical error is what consciousness is hostage to at the moment. And between consciousness and the world we experience, that mechanical mind is building the world that we then experience, you know? And so the world we see is literally being created by this schism, this left brain mechanical.
Okay, and this is why I say the religion can take us only so far. It's because we're constantly looking for that divinity outside of ourselves, that savior or God outside of ourselves. A lot of people tend to miss that within ourselves. And that's where spirituality comes into play for me, because spirituality, I feel like, brings us into our body and to find divinity within our own mind, within our own consciousness, again, balancing the left and the right hemisphere. Whereas the men doesn't no longer need to be just the left hemisphere, and women doesn't just needs to be the right hemisphere, and they must come together in order to create that divinity. And I believe that, yeah, it has to happen from within, and it's each individual making that choice for themselves. And don't get me wrong, from my personal experience, it's a journey, and it's it's a tough journey, and it's like it takes work, a lot of work, and it also takes like-minded beings, or like people who are awake, to work together in order to, I guess, speed up the process. Thus, more people can join that, I guess, the momentum, the moving forward momentum, and then which would then, get bigger and faster over time.
You're kind of saying that that union needs to be happening within each individual, kind of like that marriage happening within the individual, and that starts to bring in awareness. And once that awareness is there, it's maybe not, it doesn't mean it's fully embodied all of a sudden, but that awareness there starts to move you in that direction of like, hey, I need to be comprising the whole, like, yeah, there's almost like divinity is fragmented out into a polarization, but we have to kind of gather that full aspect of divinity back within ourselves and access all aspects of that for our own reference point, or for our own understanding or knowing of ourselves, and then to wake up and try to connect with others who are on that same personal journey of gathering the whole self back together and accessing their divinity and cultivating it, and knowing that we are going to need to come together as an entire planet to do that. And that, so then what's the next step is, I don't know, small communities, small conversations like this one that can connect with others, and like, not so much secluding ourselves away once we have our group, but both making groups and connecting those groups with other groups until we can kind of network across the planet to see how we can start to create from a bigger collective mindset. So some of these maybe institutional or societal structures that are lopsided in their creation, that are maybe, creating more damage than good, we can, retire them and birth the new that is coming from that same inwardly whole comprised self.
I think that where we were looking for God was completely the wrong direction. I think it's in us if we understand what we are. So we have to look at ourselves in order to find God. We have to realize that, I'm going to use the term consciousness for now, and mind, right? It's only when we give reverence and respect and commune with consciousness and mind that God will appear, because we will then have the radio set up the right way to receive the signal.
Because we're creating this new a way of being. That takes practice, effort. Reality is that when you're trying to change someone's reality, it also has the potential to lead them into psychosis, potential. So I also want to, voice that, and then see what you two might think about that. So like is waking people, or like is people waking up to this new way of being, has that the risk?
Is it dangerous? Yeah, it really is. That's an excellent question. I'm looking forward to this bit. So what you said about it being basically dangerous, it is dangerous territory. And it's been talked about in lots of different ways, psychoanalysis and all that sort of stuff. But, mysticism, it's almost shamanic, isn't it? Some people do it with drugs, and essentially you die. The thing you think you are, the person you think you are, dies. And so that's the process. It's literally death and rebirth. And that's the phoenix from the ashes analogy and all that sort of stuff. And so I think that's a major part of the process, is to not just get rid of everything that the person is to begin to build what will remain and consolidate it and give it resonance and make it a bit stronger and sure of itself. And then you can then go to the process of, most of this has got to go, I'm afraid.
Yeah, it always breaks my heart when I hear people say like, oh, it's always been like this and it'll always be like this, or, and like, to me, that's the belief system that keeps everything in place. And it's to pull back a bigger awareness to see that, like, no, these are all choices that we're making that arrive us here, and choices that others have made. And it's definitely, not only is it not going to continue, it fundamentally can't continue because of the way it's self-destructing. It's bringing its own conclusion unto itself, and it's up to us to awaken to that, to step out of it and step beyond it, and start creating the new. And that's inevitably what we as consciousness are here to do. And how we do that is up to all of us, I think, as how we want to let that come through us and how we want to do that together. And I love what you're saying, Lex, stabilizing the part that stays the same. Like, I've not even trying to, life has just thrown things at me that have like really flipped my world inside out. And whoever I was yesterday is no longer, and I'm someone else today. But there is a part of you that continues. As much as all these identities of who you thought you were can get stripped away in an instant, who and what you are in your nature continues on and can look completely different.
Mm-hmm.
And then a few years later, it can happen again. And you'll completely reborn again, but there'll still be that same nature. Some part of you continues through that, and getting familiar with what that is within us and what that is in each other, I think, is what we're here to connect with, so that we can get okay with the change and the metamorphosing and the death and the deconstructions, and like, wow, something's still here. And that's really what's beautiful.
And so the real us is something that we need to be directed to, for good or bad. We might have bad habits, and we need to own them sometimes and be directed back to them. What I do first is I show the person and say, look at the connection between what you've achieved and the you that achieved it. And let's change the location of your awareness of self from the things you've achieved to how you achieved it and what of you achieved it,
I think maybe the point of these conversations is to try to pierce through to some deeper origins of why our planet is operating the way it is, and to start to dream in some other ways that we could see us living as human beings on this planet. Whole societies, whole structures, the entire planet could be operating on a different level, a different plane. And we don't need to be all living under this heavy level of daily stress. And we have a hunger for a higher vibrancy life that we're not living right now. And we want to arrive there. And we're pretty sure that there's a lot of other humans that have that same urge inside. And so maybe as we can all start to connect, we can start to dream in that more beautiful reality.
Yeah, I mean, even assembling a healthy meal. I mean, Shane's in England, so he's only been here a little while and he's already falling apart. It's like impossible. They don't even make food out of food anymore here.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, you know, so yeah, so it's tricky. It takes so much more energy and composure. It's almost like a heroic task to be healthy in England.
Where an old paradigm society is no longer functioning because it doesn't have our support.
And it is scary because I feel like a lot of people's freedoms are being taken away in Canada. It's little by little, but it's happening. What the government is doing, even they've asked anyone that has a commercial farm that's tapped into the aquifer, if they have their own well, they need to be registered. I think this has already happened in Australia where the farmers need to pay the government to take water out of their own well, where the farmer has to build a well, which is very expensive, and they have to store the water, also very expensive. And now they have to pay the government to use the water that they paid to have in the first place. Um, so it feels like Canada is kind of leaning in that direction. And not just that, but they also make you put chemicals in your pure water. It's already been filtered by nature. Now you have to put chemical to make sure that it's safe for you to drink.
I guess I picture it happening more organically in the, it's an awareness that, we can support and encourage others on, but at some point they have to choose and grab onto for themselves, because there's a process or a strengthening of the muscle that's required for them. They're fully able and capable to grab a hold of that awareness for themselves. And if they don't, it leaves their whole spirit atrophied, and they'll need to do it for themselves. And they can do it with our encouragement and our support, but they'll have to claim it for themselves, because sovereignty is such that no one can give it to you or force it upon you. Sovereignty in its nature includes the fact that you have to choose it and claim it. And once you do, then you know that you're responsible for holding it always. And we can maybe display sovereignty and encourage it and embody it enough that others may become curious and interested, to awaken them to why they haven't done that for themselves yet. I think we really need to put our inner, our sovereign divine energies and powers into creating the new. And so sometimes creating the new is like this: creating new conversations, new content, new something that's real and of essence and meaningful and practical to what's really happening on our planet, not just a diversion. I'm not here to entertain people or, make money off of whatever. Like, it's like, I'm here doing this because, I want to speak as directly to what's happening as possible, so it can be a catalyst for awakening, and it can be a model for, hey, these are the kind of conversations we can all be having with our friends right now. And if we're all having these conversations and recording them and putting them out there, we can be flooding the planet with this kind of content that's relevant to our lives. And we're not bypassing our lives or trying to entertain or distract ourselves from our lives because they're too unpleasant. But we're here to actively start to create them so that our lives are pleasant, so that they are the most exciting, enjoyable thing we could be doing all day, every day. And meeting up with other people is the most fascinating, beautiful thing we could be doing, because they're beautiful, sovereign individuals that are just amaze us with what they've done with their lives and how they're shining as a human being on the planet right now. And we're just connecting with bigger groups that are creating this whole communities and societies, and like, wow, and like showing up to be a part of that. That's the beautiful. I think I truly believe that that's an inevitable happening on planet Earth very soon. And it's more how much we want to show up to participate in it and open up that flow to come through us and to be a part of it, flow into each other. And yeah, that's what I believe. we'll do the conclusion with our channeling of our higher self, and we'll take a few seconds here to breathe nice and full and deep, and feel our feet on the ground, and drop into the fullness of tonight's conversation from the beginning until now, and see if we can bring through our clearest message of maybe the essence of tonight's conversation, along with anything else that we feel would like to be said or highlighted or emphasized before we close tonight.
I would suggest that spirituality is found in the most surprising places. Sometimes when you think you've moved away from being spiritual and done something mundane, that can be the place where you encounter spirituality most strongly. The normal things in life, the difficult things in life, the sacrifices, the efforts, those are the places where that authenticity becomes spirituality.
What's also present within me is to stay connected to the truth that lives within you. Meditate, go for a walk, do things that light up your soul, livens your being. Because if you, in the end of the day, as long as you're alive from within, your light will make a difference in the world that you live in.
One message that's coming through is confidence in our intuitive knowings. Follow through while listening and watching the signs, and the beauty of friendship and community, and a safe place to be real, and both finding that for ourselves and learning how to provide that for others, so that people feel safe enough to be their real, genuine selves and speak their truth. Gentlemen, and we thank our audience for listening all the way to the end, and for continuing to participate. And we invite your feedback, whether through comments or emails or whatever, or if you'd like to participate in one of these recorded conversations, I would love to hear from you. So thank you, everyone, and have a beautiful rest of your day. Bye-bye.